Hi, I'm Wednesday and I'm the translator for The Wedding Singer at the Bob Hope Theatre this week on behalf of Bromley Players. And I understand you're learning level 3 and you're coming along to see the show, and it might be your first BSL performance, might be your 50th, we will see. So I'm more than happy to have a chat with you or answer any questions you want. I can give you my email address if you like. So before we start, I would just like to set out a few logistics and so that you know exactly where I'm coming from as a translator. So, first of all, I'm not a qualified professional. I don't have my ASLI badge. I do not work in the West End. I work specifically with amateur dramatics performances. I am not a paid professional. I do charge, but I charge for a very nominal fee and for travel. That's it. So, because I'm not a trained professional, because I don't have my ASLI badge, that means that I am not subject to their rules and regulations, which is a good job, as you'll find out shortly. But it also means that as an amateur, all I can do is do my best. And I do not put myself out as an interpreter. So if you have a look at the programme and all the blurb, it says translated and delivered by, rather than interpreted, because that kind of gives people the wrong idea. So that's number one. Number two, it is my opinion, and I may be incorrect, that people do not go to see a show to look at me for the entire 2 and a bit hours. I am there to facilitate their enjoyment of the show. So here's the first thing. You have to think about your demographic when you're translating a show. So if it's Shakespeare, then yeah, you can use all the correct linguistics, all the correct signs, and you deliver it as if you're doing the 6 o'clock news. However, if you're doing Shrek or The Little Mermaid, and the majority of the audience is going to be below 12 years old in the main, then you have to think very carefully about how you're going to translate. Because the audience, again, does not come to the theatre to have to think about the right linguistics and to have to do their homework, basically. They come to enjoy the show. And that's my job. I'm here to help them enjoy the show when they need me. So, if I'm doing a kids show, I will mostly rely on sign-supported English. If I'm told before the show that there's a local group in who are learning Makaton, I'll stick a bit of that in. But usually I will think about who the demographic is. So for this show, which is The Wedding Singer, it's an over 12 show because there are sexual references and swear words in it. So I have to think about, well, again, the audience doesn't come to the show to have to think too hard. They just want to enjoy the show. So I have used BSL where I can, I've used sign-supported English where I can, and I've made up signs where I haven't been able to find any upon taking the advice of my friends who are interpreters, fully qualified, and looking online and just doing my best. I'm an amateur. Right, number 2. How do you go about translating a show? Well, it's like eating an elephant. You do it a bite at a time. So what I do is this is my procedure, just because this is how my brain works. I'm an auditory rememberer rather than things that are written down. So I get the script, I go on YouTube, other social media is available, and see if any amateur groups have done the same show that's in the script. I watch that, read through the script, yeah, okay, that's fine. So then I convert that completely legally into an MP3, and then I put it on my phone and I just listen to that for 6 weeks. In the car, on a walk, in the gym, when I'm doing a cross stitch, whatever. I'm just listening to it. Not really concentrating on it, it's just there. After about 6 weeks, it's in, and I just about know everything apart from a few things that I might have misheard. So then I start translating. And over the space of 2 weekends, I translate Act 1. And then the following 2 weekends, I translate Act 2. And you translate by basically going through the script, thinking of how you're going to sign that, looking up things that you might not be familiar with, and then trying to put it together into an incredibly rough draft. Then you start practicing. And something magical happens when you start practicing, in that you come across a bit in the words or in the songs that you think, this is so clunky, I'm not happy with it. But as you go along, it just kind of fixes itself magically. Your brain just does its thing and it fixes itself. You're always going to have songs or bits of dialogue where you think, God, I genuinely don't know how to do this better. But that's what learning's all about. Next time you come to do the same show in 2 or 3 years, you have a bit more experience and you'll be able to fix that clunky bit that you weren't happy with. There you go. So, for example, I've done Shrek 4 times now. And the first time I did it, wasn't happy with it. Second time I did it, wasn't happy with it. Third time I did it, I wasn't happy with it. And the fourth time I did it, I wasn't happy with it. Because I'm not a professional. I'm just doing my best. But the fourth time I did it was a lot better than the first time. So, yeah, it's all about learning. Okay, next. Where do you stand on stage? Well, tradition has it that you stand this side, which is from the audience looking at the stage. It's on their left. I think they call it stage right. However, do not be surprised if when you get to the theatre for tech rehearsal, they say, oh yeah, we'll put you on the other side because we've got a flashbang there. Which is a logistical issue for you because of role shift, which I'll get to in a minute. But it's also a logistic issue for the theatre, because they then have to move anyone who's deaf who's bought tickets here over to that side, and people over there might not want to move. But that's not your problem, or is it? So let's talk about the actual performance. Role shift, as you know, if you're talking about the stars, you look up. If you're talking about the ground, you look down. If you're talking to children, you look down. If you're talking to a giant, you look all the way up. But it's also things like, if the two characters, this is the girl, this is the boy, if she's talking, you angle yourself that way. If he's talking, you angle yourself that way. If it's a song and they're all singing and they're all moving around, all bets are off. You just have to do your best. And that helps the deaf audience to understand who's saying what if they're not really keeping up with the dialogue. So, then we have the logistics of health and safety. If you are standing in this one spot, you need to make sure that you know how to get on and you know how to get off. So you're not going like this trying to find your way out of the curtains at the interval. And also that there are no wires on the floor that you're going to trip over, or if there are, that they're stuck down to the floor. And the stage management crew are usually very good, but sometimes they're not. So you have to look after yourself. And then there's, what do you wear? I tend to wear black shoes, black trousers, white shirt, black waistcoat, and then a tie, which is commensurate with the theme of the show. However, for the wedding singer, because it's set in the 80s, that's going to look a bit like I'm the Undertaker standing in the corner. So this time I'm just wearing like really cash, and I've got an 80s t-shirt. But wear comfortable footwear. Oh my God. When you're on your feet for nearly 3 hours, you don't want to get blisters halfway through the show. So, then we talk about the audience and your duty to the deaf audience. You don't care about the hearing people. They can look after themselves. But the deaf audience come to see a show, just like everyone else. They pay their money. They want to come and enjoy the show. So, a lot of professional interpreters turn up 10 minutes before the show. They do the show, they leave. I don't do that. Again, I'm an amateur and I want to be better than that. I don't just want to come for the money. Because let's face it, with what I charge, I'm getting paid about £1 an hour to do the show. So what I do is I make myself available backstage, so that if there is any mucking about with moving seats and what have you, I can go down and have a chat and try and move people about and help as much as I can. And then after the show, I'll go and stand in the foyer so that if any deaf people are there, I can sort of say to them, was it all right? Did you enjoy it? And here's the thing about doing a translated show is that hearing people will come up to you and say, "Oh, you were excellent. You were really good." How do they know? Unless they're fluent in BSL. How do you know how good I was? I actually made 3 mistakes during that song. But deaf people will come over and say how much they enjoyed the show, that they love the costumes, that they really like the story. And if they don't mention you, if they don't say anything about your translation, that means you did a good job. If they point you out specifically, it's usually as a criticism. So if little children come running up to you and you're all like this after the show and they're saying, "Oh yeah, we love Shrek, we love Donkey, we love The Little Mermaid, we love Sebastian," and they don't mention you at all, job done. So I hope this has been useful. I know I jabber on a bit, but there you go, what can you do? And I hope to see you on Thursday night at The Wedding Singer. And please feel free to ask as many questions as you want. Give me some feedback, because there are certain things in the show that I had to look up and I didn't know the references for, even though I actually lived through the 80s, can't you tell? And there's the first song in the second act, which is just basically a list of lots of financial concepts. Like, yeah, that was hard. As soon as I get over that, I'll be fine. But yeah, I hope you enjoy the show, because it's a really good show. They're a fantastic cast. They're just spot on. I love working with them. And I hope you enjoy the translation. And if you didn't, let me know how I can be better, because as I said, I'm an amateur. I'm still learning. We're all still learning. Have fun.